Come join me this Sunday in Los Angeles at Hollywood Park Casino for the $500 buy-in, $50,000 guaranteed Sunday special tournament. I have a side bet with Think Blue Poker to see who can last longer. Come root me on. All right, guys, we played a session over here at the Bellagio. You guys are going to enjoy this one. We absolutely run good. We crush it. We only played about an hour and a half, but we run it up. First, do me a favor, like this video, subscribe, click the little notification bell so you know when I drop new content, and let's go review some hands. It's day 2 in Las Vegas, Nevada, and while the gang decided it was time to go find a drink, for me, it was time to not drink and get a solid session in. Waitlists are absolutely insane everywhere during the WSOP, so we jump on a seat as soon as we get called, and we buy in for the max 300 in this 1-3 game at the Bellagio, my favorite Vegas room. In the first hand, we see a limp from the hijack, then an over limp from the button, when the small blind makes a weak squeeze attempt, bumping it to $11. We look down at 10-6 suited from the big blind and decide this is in our defend range, so we make the $8 call. Of course, both prior limpers from the hijack and button, they'll also add the few extra chips to see a flop. 4 ways to a flop will have $44 in the middle. You may notice I've been playing some smaller stakes again. We ran good last night at the meetup game, and run good again today. We'll be jumping back into the 5-5 games when we get back into LA, although the volume of poker we're playing lately is becoming less. We get a flop at 3-6-8 rainbow with 1 club, flopping middle pair and a backdoor flush. This flop should not hit the small blind range who raised pre, but he continues for $20. With plenty of equity to continue, we make the call, and we'll assess the turn to try to narrow his range down. The hijack also decides to make the call, and we'll go to a turn with $104 in the pot now. The turn is a brick, deuce of hearts, and this time the small blind decides to check to me. I think with the backdoor flush coming in and still all low cards on the board, his check caps his range to just 2 overcards at best, like ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, king-queen, or queen-jack type hands, and I should have wagered here, but check behind really should be protecting my hand against a big river card. The river's a great card though, giving us trip 6s, and the small blind bets almost the minimum of $5, which is a very strange line. Trying to look like I'm stealing the pot and not putting him on an overpair, I put him to the test with an overbet of $120, but he pretty much snap folds, and we scoop $100 to get the day started. From the cutoff, we peek down at ace-queen suited, a nice premium. Under the gun raises to 15, and I should be 3-betting here, but elect to flat and under-rep my hand, just a bit. Under the gun was an older woman with a short stack in front of her, looking like she needed another cigarette. So we're heads up with $30 in the middle, and we go to a flop, and we see 7-4 queen with 2 hearts, and under the gun checks to me. Having top pair and wanting to charge for a draw, we bet $15, and the lady makes the call pretty quick. Sometimes I remember that quick calls on draw boards usually indicates a draw, so I should have bet larger, but didn't put all the pieces together in the moment. After all, it's day 2 in Vegas after a solid night of alcohol. Scoops the chips, and lays out a 3 of diamonds on the turn, and this time under the gun decides to lead for $20. Now I'm thinking something like king-queen or ace-x of hearts. Doubtful she raised with 5-6 from under the gun pre-flop, but you never know at lower limits. Given her short stack, I decide to commit the rest of it for her, $75 effective. She pretty much snaps it off, and we have a pot of around $200 to see a 4 of spades on the river. I roll over the winner, and she says she missed all her draws. We then go on to see a bunch of junk for a few orbits and request a seat change after the lady finally decided she had donated enough today and gets up to go have her cigarette. Andrew Locke and his girlfriend stopped by for a coffee and stood on the rail behind me for a bit, along with Fish Poker, his manager Richard, Mike, Double N, Lady Fish, and some random smoking dude, all the while 4 players were limping ahead of us in this hand. We look down at Queen 8 suited. Okay to defend from the big blind, but not a hand I'm interested in raising, so we check our option and we go 5 ways to a flop in a limped pot. We flop a gutter on a 9, deuce, 10, 2 diamond board and check, as we're first to act and the action quickly checks around. I'm surprised given the limp pot a set of 3s or a pair didn't show up on this board, and nobody bet. The turn is just about perfect with a black jack completing our queen high straight, and given the pre-flop action, any one of these players would be really hard pressed to have king queen, so I place a pot-sized bet into 4 other players. Under the gun, who I've been up against in every hand, is the only caller, and we'll go to the river and try to catch our fish there with $45 in the pot. The river is probably a safe card, putting a 4-liner to a straight out there, and likely ending in a chop, but if he was chasing diamonds, I'm in bad shape now. But why be scared? After all, this is Fish Street we're on. I think the fish might actually be in the mirror, as I bet out $30 for value. and he snaps it off pretty quickly. And our straight is bigger than his, and we faded a flush, so we'll scoop another hundo in this one. Under the exciting hand of the session, we looked down at pocket nines from the small blind after the low jack opened to 20. I made the call, and the calling station in the big blind comes along as well. So we're 3 ways to a flop with $60 up for grabs. The low jack is a new player at the table and so far seems to be overly aggressive, raising 20 pre, which is larger than everyone else, and c-betting pot on nearly every flop. We get a 9, jack, deuce, 2-spade flop, drilling middle set, and we check to the aggressor. The big blind plays in flow as well, and the low jack doesn't let us down, playing his hand just like the others before it, and he c-bets for a pot of $60. I have a decision to make now. The low jack has about 210 behind, and the calling station to my left has about 150, so I have them both covered. My hand could use a little protection, but based on the low jack's play, I put him on 2 overs and wouldn't mind him catching up. The big blind could be playing any 2 cards, but I ultimately decide I want him in, and I think jamming is just too strong to keep him in, so I flat call. The big blind thinks for just a second, and does decide to join us and makes the $60 call as well. We now have a pot of $240, and we go 3 ways to the turn, which is the most beautiful card we could ask for, the Jack of Hearts. Unfortunately, the action checks all the way through. The low jack let us down this time. Now, on the river, we see a 6 of spades. Not having any spades in my hand, I unblock flush hands. Doubtful either of these players has a jack because there was no betting on the turn. I decide to take the betting lead, targeting a flush, and I bet 145. I'm covering the big blind with this bet and putting the low jack nearly all in, leaving him just a few chips behind. Well, under the gun snap calls for his remaining 89, but unfortunately the low jack folds out pretty quickly. I show the full house, and the big blind shows queen jack of spades, announcing he has both a flush and a straight. Maybe he meant trips, and we scoop this almost $500 pot. What a beautiful sight to see, those red chips of the Bellagio being pushed our way. Moving on, we look at ace-6 suited from the hijack and we raise to $15. Our calling station friend to the left doesn't disappoint and makes the call. To be fair though, he's been starting to show up with some good hands. Everyone else decides to fold, so we'll see a flop with $30 in the middle and we'll be heads up. The flop comes 4, jack, 10 with 2 spades. Flopping basically nothing and knowing he's a calling station, I should have checked here. But feeling the run good in my blood, or is it that lingering tequila from the night before, I c-bet for $15, and of course, he makes the call. The turn pairs the 10 and completes the front door flush, so I surrender, and I check. And he checks behind. That's good news. The river pairs the 4 now, giving us a double paired board, so our ace may be good at this point, but no reason to bet as we're only going to get called by better, so I continue to wave the white flag, and he checks behind. He rolls over ace-queen offsuit, and we'll chop this one up.
Everyone loves a chop pot.
For the rest of the session, we then see 7 deuce of diamonds from the small blind and we defend for $2. We flop a flush draw and we bet $10 and our calling station calls. I just have this guy's number today. The turn completes our 7 high flush, so we lead for $15, but his wife shows up at the rail, so he folds and I show 7 deuce, trying to bring a little fun to the table. We then go set mining with pocket 3s on the button, but we totally brick the flop and have to fold after some betting happens ahead of us. Going into fold mode, our friends return, ready to roll, so we rack up and we head out. All right, just wrapped up a 1-3 at Bellagio. Not bad. In for 300, out for 664 in about an hour and a half. So I'll put all the numbers right here. So it was a really good time. Great hands. The queen high straight when he had a jack high straight. The full house when he hit a flush and a straight. Ran really good today, and I'll chalk this one up to just absolute run good. So looking forward to getting some more sessions and some more vlogs out to you guys. And until next time, don't forget, wash your hands.